do I have this day an opinion, a personal opinion, on the outcome in Roe versus Wade? And my answer to you is that I do not.
But do you think there is as fundamental a concern as legitimacy of the court would be involved if Roe were to be overturned?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that the legitimacy of the court would be undermined in any case if the court made a decision based on its perception of public opinion.
So a good judge will consider it as precedent of the United States Supreme Court, worthy as treatment of precedent like any other.
Senator, I said that it's settled as a precedent of the Supreme Court entitled to respect under principles of stare decisis. And one of the important things to keep in mind about Roe v. Wade is that it has been reaffirmed many times over the past 45 years.
As Richard Fallon from Harvard said, Roe is not a super precedent because calls for its overruling have never ceased, but that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled. It just means that it doesn't fall on the small handful of cases like Marbury versus Madison and Brown versus the board that no one questions anymore.
We have breaking Supreme Court news this morning. Politico drops a bombshell on the U.S. legal and political system with an unprecedented leak from the Supreme Court that Roe v. Wade may be on the verge of being overturned, reversing nearly 50 years of federal protection for abortion rights. This morning, the document that could shift history and the leak that has rocked the Supreme Court, plus the reporter who broke the story, will be our guest. And it is primary day in Ohio. Will Donald Trump remember the candidate he endorsed?
He likes them all now, he says.
Yeah, I guess he can't remember the name. Also, the latest from Ukraine. Efforts to evacuate the remaining civilians from that steel plant appear to stall amid reports that Russia may soon try to annex part of Ukraine's eastern region. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have the host of Way Too Early and White House bureau chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire, and U.S. special correspondent for BBC News, Katty Kay. Let's dive right into the breaking news. In a potentially groundbreaking shift in American constitutional law, the Supreme Court appears poised to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision. According to a leaked draft opinion published last night by Politico, a majority of the Supreme Court is prepared to overturn the right to abortion. The leak of the 98-page document is unprecedented in the court's modern history. The draft opinion was reportedly authored by Justice Samuel Alito and circulated in February. Alito writes in part this: Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. Its reasoning was exceptionally weak, and the decision has had damaging consequences. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. NBC News has not obtained or been able to independently verify the authenticity of the document, and the Supreme Court has declined to comment. The final opinion is expected in late June or early July. Joe, so many different moving parts here, but overall, what does this story mean for the Supreme Court?
Well, I mean, for the Supreme Court, in a word, illegitimacy. You know, the court's always been guided by the law, but it's also been keenly aware that as the only unelected branch of American government, they needed to not appear to be openly contemptuous of public opinion. That would be especially true today, given the GOP's might makes right approach to the sacking of Merrick Garland's nomination or the elevation of Donald Trump's final pick. One more thing. Look at this picture, Mika, from Madeleine Albright's funeral. The 5 Democratic politicians on the front row won the most votes in the presidential elections of 1992, 1996, 2000, 2008, 2012, 2016, and 2020. And yet, a half-century of constitutional rights supported by over 70% of Americans. Let me underline that again, because people lying to you on other channels will never say this. Over 70% of Americans support that constitutional right. It'll be swept away by the presidents not in this picture, and the presidents who were outvoted in each one of those elections over the last 3 decades. Now, Americans will rightly conclude that their voices and their votes no longer matter. So what are the implications for the court, for the law, and for American democracy?